Anthony stood outside his own car dealership, squinting up at the massive blue and silver sign. 6 locations under his name, a business inherited from his father. Yet he hadn't set foot in this particular store in over a year. Hello, friends. If you're new here, then don't forget to hit subscribe button. And if you like, then hit the like button also. And don't forget to tell me in the comments where you're from watching this video. Reports from his district manager had been mixed. Sales were steady, but customer complaints had risen sharply. Something felt off. He adjusted his disguise in the side mirror of a parked car. A thick beard, glasses, and a worn-out baseball cap covered his sharp features. He wore an old denim jacket over a faded t-shirt, looking nothing like the polished CEO who usually wore tailored suits. He had never personally met most of the employees here. With 6 locations, he relied on managers to run things smoothly. Maybe that had been a mistake. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The bright showroom smelled of new leather and coffee, the usual hum of sales chatter filling the air. His plan was simple. Pretend to be a customer, listen, observe, and figure out what was really going on. A salesman in his early 30s, tall with slick back hair, approached him with a broad grin. His name tag read Derek. "Hey there, looking for a new ride today?" Derek's tone was overly friendly, like a rehearsed pitch. "Just browsing," Anthony said, keeping his voice casual. "Thinking about a truck. Something reliable." Derek's grin widened. "Oh, you came to the right place, man. We got some great deals. In fact, this one right here," he gestured toward a shiny black pickup, "has a brand new engine. Just replaced it last week. Runs like a dream." Anthony's stomach twisted. He knew this truck. It had not had a new engine. In fact, he distinctly remembered the last maintenance report. This truck had been sitting on the lot for months with nothing but a basic oil change. He kept his expression neutral. "New engine, huh? That's a big upgrade." "Yeah," Derek nodded confidently. "The last owner blew it out, so we put in a fresh one. That's why the price is a little higher. But trust me, it's worth it." Anthony's jaw tightened. This wasn't stretching the truth. It was a blatant lie. Selling a used car under false pretenses like this could get them into serious legal trouble. Before he could respond, a woman's voice cut in from behind him. "Derek, that's not right." Anthony turned to see a young woman in a dealership polo, her expression tense. Her name tag read Lisa. Derek shot her a glare. "Stay out of this, Lisa." She folded her arms. "I'm just saying, the engine was replaced. We did some minor tune-ups. But that's it. You can't tell customers." Derek let out a sharp laugh. "Lisa, why don't you go file some paperwork or something? I got this." Lisa hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line. She looked at Anthony, then back at Derek before shaking her head and walking off. Anthony exhaled slowly, anger simmering. He needed to see more before he blew his cover. Feigning curiosity, he asked, "What kind of warranty would I get with this truck?" Derek didn't miss a beat. "Oh, full coverage for a year, parts and labor. No extra cost." Another lie. The dealership's policy only covered 30 days, and even that came with conditions. Anthony forced a chuckle. "Sounds like a great deal." Derek clapped him on the shoulder. "That's what I'm saying. Let's get you inside, start some paperwork." Before following him, Anthony glanced around the showroom. Lisa was at the reception desk, typing furiously, still shaking her head. Another salesman, an older guy with graying hair, was chatting with a customer, his body language relaxed and friendly. A manager, identified by his different color blazer, was in his office scrolling on his phone. Anthony's mind raced. If Derek was lying this easily, how many other customers had he misled? And why wasn't the manager paying attention? He followed Derek into a small office. A framed picture of a sports car hung on the wall, and a stack of contracts sat on the desk. Derek grabbed a pen. "Now," he said, tapping the paper, "if we get this signed today, I can probably knock a couple hundred off the price. But only if you commit right now." Anthony leaned back in his chair. "And if I need time to think?" Derek's smile faltered. "Well, see, the thing is, we got other buyers looking at this. Truck if you wait. I can't guarantee it'll still be here." Another manipulation tactic. Anthony folded his arms. I'll take my chances. Derek exhaled through his nose, clearly frustrated. Look, man, I'm trying to get you the best deal here. You don't want to miss out. Anthony let the silence stretch. Then he stood. I think I've seen enough. Derek frowned. What do you mean? Anthony pulled off his cap, removed his glasses, and ran a hand through his hair. Derek's face went pale. I own this dealership, Anthony said, his voice steady but firm. And I just caught you lying to a customer. Me, multiple times. Derek swallowed hard, his confidence draining in an instant. Anthony turned toward the doorway. Get the manager in here. Now. Derek's face drained of color as Anthony stood in front of him, his true identity now unmistakable. The confidence he had exuded moments ago evaporated, replaced by rigid tension. His fingers twitched slightly, as if scrambling for an excuse. But Anthony wasn't giving him the chance. Anthony turned toward the doorway and locked eyes with the manager, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, sitting behind his desk. The man had been scrolling on his phone earlier, oblivious to the deception happening just feet away from him. Now, realizing something was wrong, he straightened in his chair. Anthony's voice was sharp, but even as he addressed him, in my office, now. The manager hesitated, glancing between Derek and Anthony, then quickly stood and led the way to the glass-walled office overlooking the showroom. Derek followed behind, his steps hesitant. As they entered, Anthony pulled the door shut behind them. The manager finally spoke, his tone cautious. I wasn't expecting you today, Mr. Collins. Anthony studied him for a beat. I wasn't expecting to be here either, but I had a feeling something was off. And now I know I was right. He gestured toward Derek. He lied to my face. Told me a used truck had a brand new engine when it didn't. Then he tried to rush me into signing a deal based on false information. The manager's brow furrowed. That's not acceptable. Derek, what do you have to say for yourself? Derek inhaled sharply. Look, it's just sales talk. Customers expect a little embellishment. It's how we close deals. Anthony's expression hardened. That's not sales talk. That's fraud. Derek's mouth opened, then shut again. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Anthony turned to the manager. How often does this happen? The manager hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. That told Anthony everything he needed to know. The manager cleared his throat. I trust my team to handle customers professionally. If mistakes were made, I'll address them. Anthony narrowed his eyes. Mistakes? This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate lie. And judging by your reaction, I'm guessing it's not the first time. The manager exhaled through his nose. I won't pretend every deal here has been perfect, but we do what we have to do to hit our targets. Anthony's jaw tightened. Not like this. Not under my name. Derek shifted again. Look, I'm just trying to make a living. You think customers don't haggle us down? Waste our time? Walk out after hours of negotiations? We have quotas. If we don't hit them, we're out. Anthony leaned forward slightly. You think that justifies lying? Derek didn't respond, but his expression said enough. Anthony turned back to the manager. Why is this dealership relying on deception to meet its numbers? Is this something you've been encouraging? The manager's lips pressed into a thin line. I wouldn't say encouraging, but I also don't micromanage my sales team. They know what's expected. Anthony's stomach twisted. That was just a more polished way of saying he looked the other way while it happened. He exhaled slowly. This isn't just about Derek. It's about leadership or the lack of it. If this is how business is done here, then I've failed as an owner by letting it happen. A flicker of unease crossed the manager's face. Anthony wasn't done. I saw something else today. Lisa, she tried to stop the lie before it went too far, and Derek shut her down. She knew this was wrong, and from the way she reacted, I'm guessing she's seen it happen before. Neither man spoke. Anthony's gaze remained locked on the manager. Why wasn't she empowered to do the right thing? The manager sighed, rubbing his temple. Lisa's new compared to the rest of the team. She's got good instincts, but she doesn't always understand how the business works. Anthony's jaw clenched. She understands more than you do, if she's the only one pushing back against dishonest sales tactics. Derek scoffed under his breath, but Anthony ignored him. The silence in the office grew heavier. Finally, Anthony spoke again, his tone final. This stops today. No more lies. No more pressure tactics. If a car has issues, we disclose them. If a warranty only covers a month, we say so. If a salesperson can't hit their quotas honestly, they don't belong here. Derek's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Anthony turned back to the manager. I need to know if you're capable of running this store the right way. Because if you're not, I'll find someone who is. The manager exhaled, nodding slowly. I hear you. Anthony wasn't satisfied. That's not enough. I want an action plan on my desk by tomorrow. A full review of sales practices, customer complaints, and employee feedback. And I want Lisa in my office before the end of the day. The manager gave another nod, this one more reluctant. Understood. Anthony turned to Derek. For now, you're suspended. I don't know if there's a place for you here after this. Derek's face hardened, but he didn't protest. He simply stood and walked out without another word. Anthony watched him go, then turned back to the manager. Fix this, or I will, without waiting for a response. He left the office and made his way toward Lisa, who was still at the reception desk. She looked up, her expression cautious. He stopped in front of her. Come with me. She hesitated for a moment, then rose from her chair and followed him toward another office. As he held the door open for her, he could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She had no idea that this meeting was about to change everything. Lisa followed Anthony into the office, her steps hesitant but steady. The tension from earlier still lingered in her expression, but there was something else now. Curiosity, maybe even hope. As he closed the door behind them, she sat down across from him, folding her hands in her lap. Anthony leaned against the desk, studying her for a moment. She had been the only one to speak up, the only one to challenge what had clearly become standard practice in this dealership. That meant something. Without preamble, he spoke. How long have you been working here? Lisa straightened slightly. Almost a year. He nodded. And how often have you seen sales tactics like Derek's? She hesitated, then answered carefully. More times than I can count. That confirmed what Anthony already suspected. If this had been an isolated incident, she wouldn't have reacted the way she did. He folded his arms. And the manager, how much does he actually know? Lisa exhaled slowly. Enough. He doesn't tell him to lie outright, but he doesn't stop them either. He just wants the numbers to look good. Anthony's jaw tightened. That lined up with what the manager had said earlier. He didn't micromanage, which was just another way of saying he turned a blind eye. Lisa hesitated again, then added, There have been times when customers came back angry, when they realized they'd been misled. Some threatened to report it. But the manager always smoothed it over, offering small discounts or free service appointments. That was even worse than Anthony had thought. It wasn't just about deception in the moment. It was about a system that knowingly covered its tracks, keeping complaints quiet instead of fixing the root problem. He exhaled sharply. Why did you speak up today? Lisa blinked, as if the question surprised her. Because it was wrong. Simple. Direct. Anthony studied her for a long moment. Most employees wouldn't have risked stepping in like that. Not if they want to keep their jobs. But she had, which meant she had integrity and guts. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. I need people like you here. People who actually care about the way we do business. Lisa's eyes widened slightly. What are you saying? Anthony leaned forward. I'm making changes. The way this place has been run, it ends now. But I can't fix it alone. I need employees I can. Trust people who won't just look the other way. Lisa sat back, considering his words. After a few moments, she spoke carefully. I want to help, but I don't know if the others will change. Some of them have been doing it this way for years. Anthony nodded. That was a valid concern. People who had built their careers on deception wouldn't abandon it overnight. He exhaled. Then we find the ones who won't change, and we replace them. Lisa's eyes widened again, but she didn't look shocked, just thoughtful. Anthony continued. If you could make changes here, what would you do? She hesitated, then said, For starters, I'd make sure customers actually understand what they're buying. No pressure tactics. No misleading warranties. That was a good start. What else? She glanced toward the glass wall, her gaze flicking toward the showroom. There are good people here. People want to do things the right way, but feel like they don't have a choice. That was something Anthony hadn't considered, that some employees might not like the way things were, but had gone along with it out of necessity. Lisa turned back to him. If you want this place to change, they need to know there won't be consequences for doing the right thing. Anthony nodded slowly. That was a leadership failure on his part. If employees feared honesty would cost them their jobs, then the culture was already broken. He stood. I'm going to make this dealership something people can be proud of again, and I want you to be part of that process. Lisa hesitated, then straightened in her chair. What do you need me to do? Anthony glanced toward the door. For now, keep doing what you did today. Speak up when something's wrong. And if anyone tries to pressure you into silence, you come straight to me. Lisa nodded, her expression determined. Anthony walked to the door and opened it. As she stepped out, she glanced back briefly, then disappeared into the showroom. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. He stepped out of the office, scanning the dealership floor. The manager stood near the reception desk, pretending to check something on his tablet. But Anthony could tell he was watching him. Good. Let him watch. Anthony walked past him without a word, heading toward the employees who were still working the floor. Some noticed him, recognition dawning in their eyes. Others kept their heads down, unsure of what was coming next. He wasn't going to fire everyone today, but he was going to make it clear that things were changing, whether they liked it or not. And the first step was making sure they all understood one thing. Underhanded sales tactics were no longer the way business was done here. Anthony stood at the center of the dealership floor, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. The employees moved around him, some pretending to be busy, others casting cautious glances in his direction. The atmosphere had shifted. Uncertainty hung in the air. They all knew something had changed, but none of them knew just how deep it would go. He needed to take control now. He walked toward the center of the showroom, making sure his presence was unmistakable. Without raising his voice, he spoke with a kind of authority that made people stop what they were doing. Everyone turned to look at him. Conversations halted. A few employees exchanged glances, but no one spoke. He gave them a moment before continuing. I know some of you are wondering why I'm here, he said, scanning the room. And by now, I'm sure most of you have figured out that I wasn't just stopping by to observe. I came because I had concerns about the way this dealership was being run. Those concerns are confirmed today. A few people shifted uncomfortably, but no one interrupted. I'm going to be very clear about what happens next, he said. His tone wasn't threatening, but it left no room for doubt. The way things have been done here, the pressure tactics, the misleading sales pitches, the disregard for honesty, that ends now. Today, a silence stretched through the room. Some employees looked down. Others studied him carefully, trying to gauge just how serious he was. Anthony continued, his voice steady. I know not everyone here operates that way, and I know some of you have felt like you had no choice. That changes starting now. No more lies. No more manipulating customers into deals they don't understand. If you can't sell honestly, you won't be selling here at all. He wasn't expecting applause. He wasn't expecting immediate agreement. What he was expecting, and what he saw, was a mix of reactions. Some employees looked relieved. Others looked uncertain. A few, like Derek, who still stood off to the side, looked like they wanted to argue but knew better. Anthony wasn't interested in debating. He turned toward the manager, who had been watching the entire time, without saying a word. I want a full review of every deal that's been closed in the past 6 months, Anthony said. If any of them involve deception, we're making it right with the customer. That means refunds, repairs, or whatever else is necessary. The manager stiffened slightly, but nodded. Anthony wasn't done. There will also be a new training program, he said, looking at the entire team again. One that focuses on ethical sales practices. Every single employee will go through it. If anyone refuses, they'll be let go. A few murmurs passed through the group. Anthony let them sink into reality of the situation before he continued. Some of you might think this is excessive, he said, his tone calm but firm. Some of you might think this is going to make it harder to hit your numbers. But let me make one thing clear. This dealership will be known for honesty and integrity, not for cutting corners, not for misleading customers. And if that means we take a short-term hit to rebuild trust, so be it. He turned slightly, making sure to lock eyes with different employees as he spoke. I built this business with my father. It carries my name, and I refuse to let it be run like this. Another silence, this one heavier than before. Then, from the side of the room, Lisa stepped forward. I think this is the right move, she said, her voice strong despite the tension in the air. People should be able to buy a car without worrying about whether they're being misled. If we do this the right way, customers will actually trust us. Anthony saw a few nods from other employees. Not everyone, but a few. That was enough for now. He turned back to the manager. You're in charge of implementing these changes. But make no mistake, I will be watching closely. If I see any resistance, if I hear about anything being ignored, you and I are going to have a very different conversation. The manager's jaw tightened, but he nodded again. Anthony exhaled slowly. He had said what needed to be said. Now it was up to them. Get back to work, he said, and do it the right way. The employees slowly dispersed, some whispering among themselves, others returning to their desks. The energy in the room had shifted again, not just uncertainty now, but something else, something closer to change. Lisa lingered for a moment, catching his eye before offering him a small nod. He returned it before she turned and walked away. Anthony knew this wasn't over. There would be resistance. Some employees would leave. Some would try to push back. But that was fine, because this was just the beginning. Anthony remained on the dealership floor for the rest of the afternoon, watching, listening. The shift was subtle, but it was there. Some employees moved with hesitancy, glancing at him to gauge his reaction before speaking to customers. Others carried on as if nothing had changed, sticking to their usual routines. He paid close attention to Lisa, noting how she interacted with potential buyers. She didn't rush them. She answered questions directly, without embellishment. When a couple inquired about a sedan on the lot, she pulled up the service history instead of pushing for a signature. It was the way things should have been done all along. By late afternoon, Anthony returned to the manager's office. The man had retreated there after the morning's confrontation, no doubt trying to make sense of the sudden upheaval. When Anthony stepped inside, the manager straightened in his chair, setting his tablet aside. Anthony shut the door. Have you started reviewing the deals I asked for? The manager exhaled, leaning back slightly. I have. It's going to take time to go through everything, but I've already found a few questionable contracts. Anthony folded his arms. Define questionable. The manager hesitated, then pulled a folder from his desk. He flipped it open and gestured toward the first document. This one, he said, tapping the page. A customer was told they were getting a certified pre-owned vehicle, but the inspection wasn't actually completed before the sale. Anthony's jaw tightened. So they paid extra for a certification that didn't exist. The manager nodded. Anthony flipped to the next document. Another issue, a warranty misrepresented. Just like what Derek had tried with him. The next one, a financing deal where the interest rate had been altered at the last minute, trapping the buyer in something far more expensive than what they'd been promised. He closed the folder, exhaling through his nose. How many more of these do you think we'll find? The manager hesitated. If I had to guess, dozens. Anthony kept his voice steady. Then we fix every single one. Contact the affected customers. Offer refunds or free service. Whatever it takes to make it right. The manager frowned. That's going to cost us. Anthony's gaze didn't waver. The cost of doing nothing is worse. The manager rubbed his temple, but didn't argue. Anthony leaned forward slightly. I need to know something. Are you willing to change, or are you just going along with this because I'm forcing it? The manager was silent for a long moment. Then finally he sighed. I won't lie to you, he said. This dealership has operated this way for years, not just under me, but before I even got here. It's ingrained. I can't promise a perfect turnaround overnight. Anthony nodded slowly. I don't expect overnight. I expect effort. The manager met his gaze. Then you'll get it. Anthony studied him for a beat, then picked up the folder. Good. Keep working through these. I want updates daily. The manager nodded again, and Anthony turned to leave. As he stepped back onto the showroom floor, he spotted Derek near the exit, speaking in hushed tones with another salesperson. Derek's posture was tense, his expression tight. When he noticed Anthony watching, he clamped his mouth shut and walked toward the door. Anthony followed him outside. Derek stopped by his car, turning reluctantly as Anthony approached. I assume you're not here to wish me luck, Derek said. Anthony wasn't in the mood for games. What are you planning? Derek shrugged. I've got options. Other dealerships that don't mind aggressive sales tactics. Anthony wasn't surprised. So you'd rather walk away than change? Derek let out a short breath. I get what you're trying to do, but you're making a mistake. Customers don't want honesty. They want to feel like they're getting a deal, even if it's an illusion. Anthony's expression remained unreadable. And that's how you justify lying? Derek tilted his head slightly. It's how the business works. Anthony shook his head. No, it's how bad business works. Derek exhaled sharply. Look, I could stay. Pretend to change. Go through your training. But we both know I wouldn't mean it. And you'd just be waiting for me to mess up. Anthony didn't deny it. Derek glanced back at the dealership. I'll be out by the end of the day. Anthony watched as Derek got into his car and drove off. He wasn't disappointed. He had expected this. Some people wouldn't change, no matter what. And that was fine. The dealership would be better off without him. As he turned back inside, he spotted Lisa near the reception desk. Noticing the interaction, she didn't ask what had happened. She didn't need to. Instead, she simply gave him a look that said, "Now what?" Anthony met her gaze. Now, they built something better.